Welcome to Signal and Clue. We focus on small signals that often lead to critical clues about geopolitical events, industries, and companies. What we deliver to our audience centers on the hidden intentions of key stakeholders and what those intentions mean for the world around us. Signal and Clue draws on a range of openly available sources, newspaper headlines, statements from major players, and expert analysis. We use these to read how situations are evolving before the broader market catches on. This is not financial advice. Everything here is intended as a reference, a way to help you think through the repercussions of these signals on the broader financial markets. The interpretation is yours. In our last episode, we introduced a scenario framework built around two key variables: the level of pressure being applied on Iran and which side, the US or Iran, would walk away with the more favorable deal. That framework produced four possible scenarios. After weighing the signals, we pointed firmly to one: high pressure, with terms tilting in America's favor. We also made a specific timing call: resolution before the Trump-Xi summit. That prediction still stands. Today, we return to that framework, not to revise it, but to stress test it against everything that has happened since. Let's go signal by signal. Signal 1, the US and Iran, a war of words and withholding. Here is the pattern we keep seeing from Washington. Trump talks about peace, but Iran responds with resistance. Trump warns of force, but does not follow through. Trump declares progress, but produces no details. The latest example: Trump launched Project Freedom, a US Navy operation to guide stranded commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran immediately attacked vessels in the strait and struck Gulf allies for the first time in nearly a month. Less than 48 hours later, Trump paused the entire operation, saying there had been great progress in negotiations. No specifics, no deal, just a pause. Trump told reporters the talks over the last 24 hours had been very good, and that a deal was very possible. Iran, for its part, confirmed it was still reviewing Washington's proposal through Pakistani mediators, and had not yet delivered a response. What does this tell us? Both sides are clearly engaged, but the gap between Trump's optimism and Iran's caution is real and significant. Negotiations are alive, but they are far from closed. Here is a signal that received far less attention than it deserved. The UAE raised the possibility of selling US assets, hinting it might need dollar liquidity due to war-related damage. Almost immediately, Trump said he would help. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent followed up formally, telling a Senate committee that swap lines exist to maintain order in dollar funding markets and prevent the disorderly sale of US assets. Bessent then revealed something larger. Many Gulf and Asian allies had made similar requests, not just the UAE. But there is a deeper story. The UAE had quietly floated the idea of pricing some oil transactions in Chinese yuan if dollar liquidity tightened. Washington knows this. A swap line is not charity. It is a strategic transaction, buying continued dollar dominance in global energy markets. The UAE then dropped another bombshell. It announced it is leaving OPEC entirely, just days after the swap discussions became public. That is not coincidence. That is realignment. Signal and Clue reads this as a clear indication of Washington's anxiety about the long-term health of the petrodollar system and its willingness to act decisively to protect it. For weeks, China said almost nothing. Then, on May 6th, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in Beijing. Iran's first visit to China since the war began on February 28th. Wang's words were direct. He called for an immediate and full ceasefire. He called continued hostilities unacceptable. He expressed that China was deeply distressed by a conflict that had caused, in his words, serious losses to the Iranian people and severe damage to regional and global peace. Wang also urged all parties to respond to global calls to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and he affirmed China's support for Iran's sovereignty, including its right to enrich uranium. So this is not a message that sides entirely with Washington's position. But the timing is the signal. This statement came directly before the expected Trump-Xi summit. China does not make moves like this without calculation. Beijing is telling Tehran, The window for leverage is closing. Negotiate now. Signal and Clue reads Wang Yi's intervention as a quiet green light for Iran to come to the table, rather than wait indefinitely for better terms. Israel continues to strike Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, including a senior commander killed in Beirut's southern suburbs on May 7th, the first such strike on the area in nearly a month. Israel has made its demands clear: the removal of all enriched uranium from Iran and the complete dismantling of Iran's enrichment capability. Prime Minister Netanyahu said this publicly this week, adding that Israel and the U.S. remain in full coordination. Every strike is a signal. Israel is operating with urgency, and it is reminding all parties that any settlement must address its security requirements, not just Washington's diplomatic calendar. During a supposed ceasefire period in Ukraine, Russia launched a major offensive. This is worth noting, not because it changes the Iran picture directly, but because it reveals something about the broader context. Multiple crises are burning simultaneously. Washington is managing Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, a summit with China, and Ukraine, all at once. Every stakeholder in this equation knows that American attention and bandwidth are finite. Iran knows this too. U.S. equity markets have turned upward again. Technology stocks, semiconductors in particular, have rallied sharply. When institutional money moves into rate-sensitive, growth-oriented sectors, it is pricing in an expectation of de-escalation, lower oil, lower inflation risk, reopened trade routes. U.S. unemployment has also remained stable despite oil-driven price pressures. The underlying economy is holding, which gives Washington slightly more room to negotiate without domestic panic forcing its hand. Markets are not always right, but they are often early. So where does this leave us? Signal and Clue's assessment has not changed. The weight of the evidence still points toward our primary scenario: high pressure, U.S. favorable terms, and an early resolution, one that arrives before the Trump-Xi summit. Every major stakeholder is moving in a direction consistent with this outcome. The U.S. is applying military and economic pressure simultaneously. China has broken its silence to nudge Iran toward the table. Markets are already pricing in a deal. The UAE, a critical Gulf ally, is visibly realigning toward Washington. However, one important nuance deserves your attention. U.S. favorable does not mean Iran walks away empty-handed. With the Trump-Xi summit as a backdrop, there is a real possibility that Iran receives quiet, behind-the-scenes concessions. Concessions that will not be announced publicly, but that make the deal acceptable to Tehran. Watch for what is not said. That is where the real terms will live. Today's theme is the clue behind the cloud. Picture a vast cracked landscape, the kind you see in the Sahara at the height of the dry season. The earth is split and parched. Animals move slowly across it, worn down by heat and thirst. And above them, in an otherwise empty sky, a small dark cloud is forming. It is barely visible, but it is growing. That is the world right now. The Iran war is still being fought. No one can say with certainty when it ends, or exactly how. All we can do is read the signals and reason carefully about where they point. Signal and Clue exists for investors who do not have armies of analysts or access to classified briefings. Our goal is simple: give you a new angle of view, to help you see the cloud before the rain arrives. We are not here to tell you what to do with your money. We are here to help you think more clearly, see more widely, and ask better questions. What you do with that is entirely your decision. This episode is for education and entertainment. It is not financial advice. It never is. Thank you for watching Signal and Clue. See you next episode.